Okay, so we're going to talk about writing your introduction. Once you have your body paragraphs written, we will go back then and add an introduction and a conclusion around the body paragraphs. So the introduction will come first, the body paragraphs come next, and then the conclusion comes last. It seems out of order to write it this way, but again, the majority of your grade is based on what's in the body paragraphs, not what's in your introduction or conclusion. So it's more important to spend more time on your body paragraphs. So this is a time management technique. Additionally, it's actually easier to write your introduction after you've written your body paragraphs and you know what you've said, because the introduction introduces the reader to what you're going to say. So once you've said it, you've written those body paragraphs, it's a little easier to know how to introduce them because you know what you said. So you should try and grab the reader's attention by being interesting and creative if possible. Some essay topics lend themselves to that a little more than others. But you should always definitely let the reader know what you're going to be writing about, the topic of your composition. What you don't want to do is say this essay is about, or I will be writing about. That is not appropriate voice, style, tone for the task as a 7th grader. Okay, so while it might have been appropriate when you were in elementary school, it no longer is an appropriate way to start. And one of the things that you are assessed on under the state standards is your ability to write appropriately for the task and audience. So how should you start then? Well, there are a few options. You want to introduce the topic. You can summarize the topic or the issue, or issue the sources discussed. So what your writing prompt's about, what the sources that you're writing about are about. You can create like a story situation, which makes the reader kind of part of the topic, how it affects them personally. Or you can connect what you're going to write about the topic to why it's an important issue today. So you can start with statements of fact, you can start with questions, you can start with quotes. Any of those are appropriate starts. Once you have that first sentence to 3 sentences, it should be no more than 3 sentences, you should go on to introducing each source that you're going to talk about. So in this case, it would be the poem and the article and the video. So in order to do that, you have to include the title and author of each source. And you want to put them in the introduction in the same order that the body paragraphs are in. So if the first body paragraph is about the poem, then you should talk about the poem first in your introduction. If your first body paragraph is about the video, then you should talk about the video first in your introduction. So it should mirror the order the paragraphs actually are going in. And then you want to explain how using multiple sources helps improve understanding. Okay, so I did some examples for you and I kind of color coded them. So here is the checklist, and each of the different pieces of your introduction I've color coded. Now this number 1, you're only choosing one of these, so you're either going to choose the blue or the green or the red. I did an example using each one, then you go on to purple, and then you go on to the brown. So if you look at the examples that I did, okay, so this is using blue, and blue is summarizing the topic or issues. I used the question kind of strategy to do that. So who should own antiquities? This is an important question today among governments, historians, and museums around the world. But why do historians, government, and museums care? Should everyone care? So I've introduced what we're talking about, right, which is who should own them, and then why are they important. By asking if we should care, you're implying that the issue is this an important concern at all, right? So it gets to the topic that we're going to talk about. The next thing to do is introduce each of the sources that we're using. That was the purple, right? Introduce the title and author of each source. So From here, I said in the article, A Tug of War Over Ancient Treasures by Mo Rocco, and the video, Egypt Wants Treasures Back by National Geographic. So in this one sentence, I'm putting both the article and the video. The importance of antiquities to countries of origin and to museums is examined. So I give the title of the article and the author, the title of the video and the producer, and what they're about, which is the importance of antiquities to the countries and to the museums, why they want to own them. The poem Artifacts by Frank Avon examines the importance of artifacts to individuals. So I put this in a separate sentence in this case. And then what do we learn from examining the sources? What becomes clear from studying these different points of view? So what you don't want to say is, I learned that, or you will learn that. We don't use I and you in formal writing. So we phrase it this way: what becomes clear? What is clear? Studying these sources clarifies points of view. Things like that. We put it in a more general way and pull out the I's and the U's. So what becomes clear from studying these different points of view is how very important antiquities are to the many cultures around the globe. So basically I'm saying what we're going to talk about in all these sources is why they're important, right? So, but I said it in a way that is more formal, which is the goal. The goal is to increase the formality in our writing, the vocabulary choices, use more academic vocabulary, and write to a more appropriately for your audience, which in this case is your teachers. So the second one was by putting the person in, the reader in a situation that makes it part of the topic or issue, okay? And one way to do this is you can start imagine, and then kind of set up a scenario. Again, it should be no more than 1 to 3 sentences, though. It should not be a whole story. So my example, imagine visiting the British Museum, expecting to see the Rosetta Stone, only to find out it's no longer there. It has been returned to Egypt. But does Egypt own it? Who owns the many antiquities that have been discovered? Are they important? So I go from setting up the imagining situation, right, where it's 2 sentences long, really, right, which is just imagine seeing the Rosetta Stone, it's not there, it's been returned to Egypt. This is my scenario. And then I go into the topic. Does Egypt own it? Who owns them? And is it important? Okay, so again, getting back to that, you know, why are people fighting over them? Why do we think they're so important? And then I'm going to introduce each source again, just like I did in this example. And again, I'm going to wrap it up by saying how looking at the different sources, by looking at the article, looking at the video, and looking at the poem, we can discover why they're important to people, countries, civilizations around the world. The third way is to do, relate the topic, okay, why are they important to current issues? So making it very current, and I did this with a statement of fact here. All across the world, archaeologists, historians, anthropologists, and other scientists are continually discovering new artifacts from ancient civilizations. That's a statement that's a general statement that's true. It's related to our topic, right? They're finding them. The question arises, who should own these artifacts? There's our issue. What about the artifacts already discovered? These questions only matter because the artifacts are viewed as important. So again, right, getting to the heart of what our essay should be about, which is, you know, why do we care who owns them? Why are they so important to people? Okay, in the article, A Tug of War, and again, I introduce each of my 3 sources, and then I wrap it up with how using the different sources helps us understand why they're important to cultures around the globe. Okay, so these are 3 examples. You are welcome to use them to help you write your introduction. You cannot copy them word for word, but you can use them to help you along with the checklist.